Okay, No Bunk fam, welcome back to Birdie on One. It's been a minute, But Jay and I felt like it was really important that we came on to just have a discussion about mental health, some of the benefits of golf, but also the fact that a lot of golfers live high pressured lives, whether they are professionals who are getting ready for that next board meeting, folks who are coming up trying to actually make it on tour, or folks who are using golf as a way to get out of the house and find that moment of peace. Obviously, in light of the Grayson Murray tragedy, and we'll get into that, but also in light of some of the things that were said by folks like Lexi Thompson or Nelly Corda talking about the pressure that they're under. One of the reasons that we started No Bunkers, No Bogeys was to have an opportunity to talk about mental health and talk about the stress that we're all often under that no one can see. And so we're really excited to take a minute and actually talk about this because we hope that in discussing things like this, it sparks conversations in our community. And we think the golf community is one that needs to continue to grow that ability and that strength. So, John, obviously, we can start with Grayson Murray. No one can ever get in the head of somebody else. No one knows what someone's walking around with. But it seems like professional athletes, they're under more pressure and more scrutiny, but also more pressure to be perfect and maybe not share that pressure to be superheroes. How do you feel about the mental state of the professional athlete today?
It's tough. It's tough. One of the things that I talk about with athletes all the time is kind of this idea of Superman. Superman can leap tall buildings in a single bound. He can go to outer space. He can probably go into the center of the sun. He can stop alien races from taking over the world. But he can also stop a train that's about to fall down off the subway tracks and, save 100, 200 people at once. And they'll run around, they'll clap as that happens, and then they'll walk away. Nobody really goes up to Superman and goes, "Well, that was some wild stuff, dude. Like, can I buy you a beer? Do you need to talk about it? Is there anything I can do to help you?" They just see Superman, this person who can do these amazing physical feats, these amazing things, but they never really think about what's going on inside of him, the storm that may be brewing because he's having these definitely super stressful, but also near death experiences on a continuous basis. And for athletes, they are putting themselves through a high pressure, high stress environment for their job. So everything that they do has high stakes. There's never a moment when they're in a game where they're like, I can take this play off. I can take this game off because it doesn't matter. It does matter. And it's happening in front of the arena, everybody in the stands yelling, cheering, booing too. So not only are they worried about their own performance from an internal standpoint, they also have to take into consideration, whether they're worried about it or not, about how the public views their performance. The public could be their coaches, it could be fans, it could also be their teammates. So they're trying to please so many people while doing something that takes a lot of skill, for sure, but also takes a lot of luck, a lot of timing. And that leads to a lot of disappointment and can lead to some of the challenges that we see in athletes today.
One of the things that I, appreciated about Grayson and others who have faced mental health struggles and addiction is he was open about it. And he was open about it even at maybe the cost of sponsorships or the cost of endorsement deals because he felt passionately about it. And I think that anyone who's willing to share that journey should be applauded. We often get an opportunity when we go play golf with people to just listen and hear what's going on in their head. And sometimes doing something becomes a great catalyst for sharing what's going on in your life. What are some of the things that we can be thinking about as we listen to our friends and family that can be those yellow flags or those red flags where it's right to express concern or help them seek help? How can we think about that so we can be better equipped? Because I think all of us sometimes can encounter things that we're not ready for.
For sure. And Matt, you're talking about just the experience of talking with people, in therapy. Usually I'm sitting in front of somebody, this chair here, this chair here. And I've been fortunate in a lot of the child therapy that I do, but also with the adults, whether it be sport or whatever, the amount of introspection and conversation that can come from just side by side, walking with somebody, throwing a ball, going down the walk on the golf course. Those moments where it's not confrontational, where it's therapist client or friend telling another friend or family member something super private. We're walking together. We're both having this experience. We're casually looking at each other, but not making each other feel uncomfortable with that direct eye contact. And so when I'm thinking about things that are warning signs, I really, first of all, want to encourage people to trust your gut, right? I don't know what your gut is. I don't know what intuition is. We can't define it, but we know what it is. And we know when we feel something that makes us uncomfortable. And a lot of times that hindsight, that's 2020, we're like, I knew something was wrong and I should have called, or I should have asked them if they needed anything. If you feel that in the moment, listen to it. And that person in your life will either tell you, I'm good. You don't worry, I'm fine. They may lie to you and tell you that, or they might actually present with an opportunity to say, you know what, something is going on. And this may be the moment that I've been waiting for, wishing for, that somebody would provide me the space to tell them how I feel. And so really making space in private moments for people to just have that moment, to be comfortable enough, not brave enough, because everybody's brave when they're dealing with their own struggles, but just comfortable enough to have that time and that opportunity to speak is really important. And if you're talking a lot, you're not providing them the space to have that moment of clarity, that moment of silence where they can speak into the air some thoughts that they've never felt the comfort or the encouragement to say before.
And I want to speak to the men who are part of our community. The statistics on men taking their own lives, struggling with mental health, it's been staggering. I mean, truly staggering. And it brings to mind, there was a great viral ad that went out around two men who were watching a soccer game or football game. You saw the two of them. One was very stoic, seemed upset. The other was very boisterous and engaging. And at the end of the commercial, the twist is that it's the boisterous friend who took their own life. And it was a reminder of how little you actually know of what's happening behind this mask, right? This mask can hide so much. And, for men in particular, it can be a lot of shame tied up in seeking help and therapy, admitting that weakness or feeling like in admitting it, you are somehow failing. What would you say to our male folks who may be thinking about picking up that phone or reaching out for help, who are feeling like it's a shameful activity, a thing they shouldn't do, or it's not what men do?
It's not what men do. I've definitely heard that before. We are mortal creatures, and as mortal creatures, it's commonplace to think about our mortality in either ways of thinking about growing old and what that would mean, or thinking about ways what would happen if there was an accident that I was a part of. And then also at times, what would happen if I didn't live anymore, and what would that look like? So at times and in certain ways, that's not an abnormal thought to have, but when that thought is creating a desire to act on that thought, or is creating a desire to no longer exist and be able to experience some of the things that you experience because of this pressing weight on your body and on your mind, then that's something that we really need to have a conversation about, because it is serious. And for every person that exists in this world, there is somebody who loves them more than anything else in this world. And we also think when it comes to suicide is not only do we want to preserve life now, I want to preserve the future you. So if you're a 20-year-old dealing with suicidal thoughts, I'm not only fighting for you in this moment, I'm fighting for the 40-year-old you who may have the opportunity to experience and see the world in a different way, be around different friends, have access to different opportunities, be able to achieve different levels of success. It might be hard for you at 20, given the circumstances in your life. And you negate all those chances when you do something so permanent as commit suicide. Again, that's not a judgment on anybody. I'm not judging anybody for the decisions that they make in their lives, but that is also the reality of the situation. It is so finite. And what we found from people who survive suicide attempts is that oftentimes they just wanted immediate alleviation of these unbearable feelings. And they felt like the easiest and the most convenient and the most common way to do that is through suicide. And that hasn't necessarily been the case when they found other means to deal with these feelings, so that maybe it didn't reach the level of needing suicide, even if it was still troublesome and bothersome. And now we can take it down on a path where it becomes more and more manageable. So there may not be somebody in your personal life who's ready to hear those conversations, but hopefully in a lot of people's communities, there are religious figures, there are hairdressers and barbers in certain communities, and there are also a whole gang of clinicians that are looking forward to being that receptive ear.
Yeah, I think one thing that can be hard is how do you get started? I've had the benefit, and I think you've had the benefit of throughout our lives having supportive family members and friends who really had a belief in therapy as something that was important to invest in as an investment in yourself. And obviously it's become your career. And I spend my time in schools, and you see lots and lots of kids who benefit when they are able to get access to folks who can help them think about their mental state and give them the tools to cope. But it can be often hard when it's new, where it feels scary to invest in that. For folks who are considering it or have been long considering it or not sure where to go or how to start, how do you start? And what can starting look like in a way that makes it maybe feel a little less frightening as a next step?
Yeah. So I would say in a lot of ways, one of the things that you can do is really listen to that little tiny voice in your head, right? In the midst of the most incredible, unbearable depression, the most crippling anxiety, the most significant addiction, for a lot of people, there is a part of you that still fights, that still sees the potential for a better future, that still sees the sun of a better day and a brighter day. And being able to listen to that voice that's fighting to be heard over the noise of all these other voices and thoughts and opinions that are impacted by the depression, the anxiety, the substance use, the suicidal thoughts. For me, and people feel this way as other clinicians, depression is a disease, and I treat diseases like enemies. And depression wants to isolate you from the things you love, wants to isolate you from your friends. It wants to convince you that it's more powerful than it actually is. And that's not to say depression isn't powerful. It is powerful. But the human spirit, combined with a loving community, combined with good medical treatment, it's pretty powerful. And we really want to remind people that we're there. And it's also our job as clinicians, as mental health professionals, to encourage people to come out and have these conversations in private, and also to manage these conversations appropriately. There are a lot of people who don't want to go to therapy because they had bad experiences in therapy, either as young people or as adults. And so for every bad therapist that gives somebody a bad experience, the good therapists have to work twice as hard to kind of make sure that we're able to overcome that experience and give somebody a reparative moment.
If I needed to pick up the phone tomorrow, where do I go? Who do I talk to?
It's a good question. It's a hard question. So I'd say before you call anybody, just sit and think. What do you want to accomplish? What's the low-hanging fruit? How far are you willing to go? Because maybe the help you need is not the help that you're ready for in this moment. And maybe what we can do is work our way up to the eventual need by being able to manage needs that you're comfortable with. So one of the things you can do if you have health insurance, you're fortunate enough to have that support. You can call up your health insurance. They can tell you about clinicians in the area. You can always talk to your PCP when you go for a wellness visit, annual checkup, or just calling them up and, having an appointment and talking in the privacy of that hospital space. And then also, again, there's a lot of non-clinical resources that are really powerful. Some people find AA or NA meetings to be helpful. Some people find just barbershop conversations, hairdresser conversations helpful. And some people find clergy and religious consultation and counsel very helpful. So there are many different ways that we can find people to hear us. But the first step really being is thinking about, what do you want? What do you need? What are you ready for? What would you need in this moment? And then seeking it out. And as clinicians, we really try to meet people where they are and not overwhelm them by giving them too much, but really help them understand this is the buffet of services we can provide, and really encourage you to pick one that best suits where you are and also where you eventually want to go.
I love all the options there are to talk to people. You can also go on to things like BetterHelp and others that are available to you. if you want to start, and this is true for everybody who's here. And I know we mentioned men earlier, but for our female membership as well, right? And folks in all sorts of classes, LGBTQ plus, folks from minorities, like all of us face a lot of burdens in our lives, a lot of hurdles, a lot of things that are in our control and out of our control. But the one universal truth is we're all humans and we all suffer. And while it is okay, and like there is no happiness without sadness and there is no joy without pain, life does not have to be endless suffering. Mental anguish is real and it is insidious. It takes you away from, as you mentioned, the people you love and the things that you love and the human that you are. And if there's one thing that, John and I are both very committed to in our platforms, helping you see golf, but also this community as a tool that you can also use as a safe space, as a place for communication, as a chance to see nature and see friends and be with people. And, sometimes if you can't do some of the other stuff, go play around a golf with someone.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed what an hour spent in quiet and peace with someone that you care about can do. And, I am really proud to see athletes today really talking about the loneliness of the journey, how hard it is, because I also think that kids need to understand that if they take that road, it's not always the easiest. It will require help and support to get there. For kids who are thinking about going pro or staying in sports or high pressured careers, what would you tell them are the best ways for them to prepare for that, seeing what that pressure can do and how it can eat people up as they continue to grow and progress?
When you were talking, I was thinking about one of the reasons why we love athletes right now versus growing up, because you and I are two 40-year-olds. I think back in the day, we loved athletes because we felt like they were superhumans doing superhuman things. And I think today we love athletes because we recognize that they're humans doing superhuman things because of social media, because of other things. We get to see them a little bit more holistically and we have a little more contact with them as opposed to they're up here and we're down here. And so seeing that human element, but still being able to see them hit that step back J, to be able to see them, lead a fourth quarter comeback, it makes it even that much more marvelous. And so I think if an athlete is looking to take a career in sports and take it as far as they can, the first thing that I would tell them is, what's your life outside of sports like? Sports will be a huge factor, but you may get injured. You can't play sports into your 50s, 60s, and 70s professionally, particularly in the four major sports in North America. So you're going to have this hopefully 10, 12-year run, maybe even 5-year run. But after that, when you're 35, 40, what is the rest of your life going to look like? And if we're able to enrich the boundaries of that person's life outside of sports, it's going to make the time outside of sports great because they're going to be doing their art, they're going to be hanging with their friends, they're going to have a really enriched family environment, and that's going to make the time in sport really great too because they're rest and recovered and ready to enjoy and fully dive into each aspect of their life. And they are able to, like a lot of people in 2024, we're multifaceted. We have different things that we like and different things that we love and different things that we hate. And so throughout the course of a day, a week, and a month, we can cycle through all those things and feel whole versus feeling like the only thing I care about is sports. But then what happens when you have a career-ending injury? What happens when you're out for a season for an ACL tear? What happens when you're not getting the playing time that you want? Your whole world just falls out. And so when that happens with people who have the enriched life, they're able to have that piece fall out, but get caught by the other areas in their lives that give them value, give them purpose, and give them meaning.
I love that idea. John will tell you, I've always loved the villain athletes, right? Barry Bonds, Kobe, those always been my dudes. One of the things I always loved about Kobe, and, I'll say this to the career folks out there, I push my career as hard as you possibly can. I was a CEO by 36, and you have to find a way to both be maniacally focused on your pursuit while also preparing for what happens next. And I will say this, like, one of the things I always admired about Kobe was as much as he was on the court playing trying to outcompete, trying to one up Jordan, right? Kobe number, one over Jordan. He also was investing in so many other facets of his life because he knew there would come a day when he could no longer play. And I think one of the tragedies of Kobe's early death is we won't get to see what happens next. And yet we are seeing some of the roots of that legacy of someone who diversified their perspective and view, gave themselves opportunities to learn and look at new things. I'm not suggesting everyone needs to be like that, but I am saying that my career took a marvelous turn because I continued to pursue something I love, which was understanding the American education system, and I'm now working it every day. You never know what that looks like. And it has been one of the healthiest and most mentally stimulating and relieving things to leave a crazy track of investment in M&A, to still be in a highly competitive industry, for profit, venture backed, but also creating real impact. And I just say, what you do today, who you are today, does not have to be who you are tomorrow. There is no such thing as a permanent choice. And I would just encourage folks, regardless of the arena, be it an arena or a metaphorical one, finding that support and help. No one is too busy. No one is too talented, too gifted to not benefit from time to time having someone to talk about how you feel about what's going on in your life. And if there's one thing I think both of us would want to impress on you, it's that you are loved and precious. You matter. If you were to go tomorrow, there would be a huge hole left in lives that you know about and lives that you don't. And so you owe it to yourself. And if you can't do it for you, do it for them. Pick up that phone, take the meeting, talk to somebody, pick up the clubs, doesn't matter. But you got to hope that we really hope that you will, because you're worth it. And, if these tragedies like Grayson, if the pressures like some folks have talked to us, talked publicly about, are to be taken seriously, we should take it as a real cautionary tale. And at least my final word on it is, we want to see you thrive. And we've built this community to hopefully help you do that. And, I'll turn it over to Jay for the professional last word.
No, I think, Matt, you spoke very beautifully on it. And, I think one of the things you highlight that I'll just echo is there are so many beautiful people that you have yet to meet in your life, right? Like, I didn't meet my wife until I was in my mid-30s. I could have never dreamed of meeting her, but I did. But that wouldn't happen for me until I was in my mid-30s. And in my 40s, right now I'm 40, there's probably some really dope people I'm going to meet in my 50s, in my 60s, in my 70s. And they're just out there in the future waiting for that year to come, that day to come, that week to come, where we bump into each other. So for people out there that feel like you're alone, your people are waiting. They're waiting in the future. They're waiting to say that I've been waiting years to find you. I'm so excited that you're here. I couldn't imagine life without you. Those people are out there waiting for you a month from now, a week from now, a year from now, a decade from now. The most beautiful people you'll encounter in your life. We just have to have the endurance and the stamina, which is the hardest part of any sporting event that I know I've been a part of. Just that ability to put one foot in front of the other, the ability to maintain and concentrate for a long period of time. Keep that focus. And not only will those beautiful people be in your future, but guess what? You get to be a beautiful person in their lives too. You get to be the person that person who's dealing with a similar situation of, do I really want to be here or not? You will be the emphatic yes to that answer when they meet you and they come across you, because you have the compassion, you have the empathy, you have the understanding. You know what it's like to be on your last leg. You know what it's like to be with a couple of fingers holding on to that rope and not knowing if you'll let go. And they'll be able to find a home in you like none other. And that's a really beautiful thing to offer and to mutually give each other, is a place of understanding. And we really hope that y'all find that and you have the opportunity to experience that love, because it's either happened to you, or if it hasn't happened for you, buckle up, because it's about to happen. It's going to be one of the best and most beautiful things in your life.
Amen to that. And just remember, that might be that single who's sitting there nervously waiting at the first tee, not